Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this weather workshop. Arguably, what is one of the warmest evenings of the year. I think we're all sweltering here, but thank you for coming along. My name is Chris Kidd, and I'm the director of Astral Aviation Consulting. We're a consultancy that's been subcontracted by the CAA to provide a whole host of different GA safety-related materials, of which this webinar, this workshop, is one of them. Again, thank you ever so much for coming along. Yeah, this workshop is part of a dedicated GA safety campaign, more information of which will pop in the chat box as we go. So, also, it'd be great to know who of you are joining us for the first time. So if you are joining us for the first time, say hi. It's very interactive, as I'll describe in a minute. So please do get stuck in as we go through. If you want to get more information, if you want to stay in the loop as to what we're doing, other GA safety activities throughout the year, and then please log on to our website, www.astralaviationconsulting.com. There's a whole host of other stuff on there, so please get involved. Also, the replay for this workshop will be on there, and there's a whole host of other replays for different workshops there as well, some of which I'm sure you'll be interested in. Okay, so let's move on to the weather stuff for this evening. So I'm delighted to be joined once again by Matt Lane, who's the head of training for RAF Sport Aircraft. Hi, Matt.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
He's an active single and multi-engine flight examiner and flight instructor. I'm also joined this evening again, some of you might remember him from last December, by Dr. Simon Keeling. Simon's a fellow of the Royal Meteorological Society, a one-time TV weather presenter, no less, and the founder of Weather School. And Weather School teaches pilots how to confidently interpret and forecast the weather so that they, us, you, can improve their flight safety and get the maximum from their flying. Welcome, Simon. Good to see you again.
Evening, everybody. Evening, Chris. Evening, Matt. Hi, everyone.
So over the course of the next hour or so, we're going to break this workshop down into a few sections. In section 1, Matt will cover the flight planning and set the scenario. In section 2, Simon's going to take over and discuss weather planning considerations for planning a day trip. And we're all going to be off to Shobden today, more of which later on. And then finally, in section 3, we'll go through some Q&A. So for you diehards out there, you'll know that we love a bit of interaction, so please do get involved in the chat box throughout. And also, if you do have any questions for Simon and Matt, or for myself even, then please pop those in the Q&A, and we'll endeavour to answer many of those at the end. Okay, right. So before we start, however, some of you, the more eagle-eyed amongst you in the run to this, might have spotted this in the advertising. So one lucky attendee tonight will win a Weather School course. It's worth £250, and that's courtesy of Astral Aviation Consulting, and it's with Simon at Simon's Weather School. It's a voucher for a 3-hour online Weather School course, which can be redeemed at a time of your choosing. The lucky winner will learn about, I'm going to read a list now, how to spot weather trends, how to do DIY forecasting, fronts, highs and lows, the atmosphere and clouds, risk assessing hazards, air masses, and wind forecasting. It's suitable for PPL and pre-ATPL, well, sorry, everybody really, students, PPL flyers and people with ATPLs. But if you'd like to be in with a chance of winning this, you must follow Astral Aviation Consulting on Facebook and Instagram. So if you've already followed us, then great. If you don't have an Instagram or Facebook account, now's the time to make one. Okay, right. Also, once you've done that, please tell us in the chat box that you've done it, and our lovely assistant will do some background work on that to find out if you're actually telling the truth. And then the lucky winner will be announced at the end. Okay, hopefully that's clear. If you have any questions on that, please stick it in the chat. So without further ado, on to the meat of this, over to Matt for planning and scenario.
Hi, yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome from sunny West Oxfordshire. The Air Force taking advantage of nice weather as well. C-17 doing circus outside my back garden, so somebody's busy as well. But let's move very quickly and have a look through a bit of prep and planning issues here as well. So we're going to start with a poll. Those of you who've been with us before, familiar with the polls, but I'll just talk through those for the first one going there as well. So poll 1 then. So as we're talking about landaway planning today, what would you do if you saw Prob 40, 3,000 meters, heavy TSRA? I'm not going to read it all out and give it two-way. Broken 015 few 025 CB in the TAF at your destination over your planned arrival time. Okay, so if you saw that in a TAF, what would you be thinking? Have a have a pick there of one of the choices. So we've got cancel the trip, plan to arrive later, or go on time. So no right or wrong answers. There is this isn't an exam. This is just a poll to get us thinking and talking about there as well. So have a look. That's in your TAF over your arrival time. Give people a few more seconds, and then we'll pop the results up and let's see what people think. Let's have a look at the answers. So 70% of you thought to cancel the trip. 27% plan to arrive later. 3% go on time. So that's interesting. So most people are seeing a threat there in that. A few people are going to cancel totally. A few people are going to slip. And like I said, there's no right or wrong answers, and a lot of this will be influenced by, do you need to go? Have you got a plan B? Have you got another destination? And that. But that's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how some of that thinking plays out in the as we go through in our scenarios. So let's have a look at the kind of preparation. So I'm just going to, you've all come here tonight to hear Simon. He's the starter, and you don't want to hear me go on for ages. But we're just going to give a scenario preparation that we're going to then kind of hang things on throughout the presentation tonight. So what we're looking at, we've decided to go on a day trip for lunch somewhere. Maybe sharing the leg there with a friend and back. Very typical PPL level kind of flight. So I fly from Brize Norton. So we said, right, let's use Brize Norton as the base airfield. Why not? It's my one, and it's kind of in the centre of the UK, in the south of the UK. A lot of you may fly from airfields around us as well, like Enstone and Oxford and things like that as well. And we're going to go to Shobden. It's Wednesday today, and our plan is we've got the aircraft on Saturday. So we're going to go for lunch on Saturday. So PA-28 Warrior, typical flying club kind of aircraft. And over the next few days, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the weather, getting my kit together. I'm going to make sure my iPad's updated. I'm going to make sure I've got everything ready. Batteries in my headset are still good, and I've got everything that I generally like to take with me on the flight. So let's move on. Next slide, please. Planning them. So we've got our trip. What we're going to do. So this is obviously from Skydeem, and many of you will use it. Other apps are available as well, but this is the kind of thing so we're going to be looking at. So we've kind of sketched out a route over the next few days, over an evening, over a coffee. I'm starting to have a look at the route there and back. I'm starting to have a look at the airfield plates. I'm going to see if there's any long-standing work in progress, or like airfield works that could affect my flight. And also going to have a look at the kind of taxi patterns and that as well. Going to different airfields can be actually quite complex with where to taxi and where to get off as well. I took a twin, a Duchess, into Cambridge, which is the first time I'd actually landed at Cambridge in many years on Monday. So I had you often need to find yourself around the airfield. That's half of the job. And I'm going to be doing all this slow time ahead of Saturday. So on the day on Saturday, I'm not having to rush on the day as well. We could go on about this a lot, and we have done previous things on this as well. But if you want to do more about how to go about this as well, they did a great link and collaboration with John Hunt, the flying reporter, and the link for that is going to go in the chat box now there as well. Really commend it. It's on YouTube, so you can watch it on any device. And John talks through all of this kind of pre-planning and thinking for a typical land away private flight. It's a really good video as well. Part of that as well is a pre-flight planning checklist, which the link will appear in the chat box for just there as well. That's something you can download and print off and keep in your flight bag or whatever. So I talked about prep in terms of NOTAMs, route and things, but what I haven't talked about is the weather. So that's exactly what I'm going to hand over to Simon for. That's what we're all here for, and that's going to be the big part in it as well. So just to remember the scenario, it's Wednesday, and we're looking at flying on a Saturday on this trip. All right, over to you, Simon.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Good evening, everybody. Lovely to be back again. Great to be with you all once again. I tell you what, before we get going, shall we start with another poll? Here we go. On a synoptic chart, what is the symbol for a front that's getting weaker? Again, this isn't particularly to catch you out, it's just to get the juices flowing, really. So on a synoptic chart, what's the symbol for a front that's getting weaker? Is it a solid line with semicircles or triangles? Is it a line with plus symbols along it and triangles or semicircles? Is it a solid line with alternating semicircles and triangles? Or is it a solid line with nothing marked on it? So you've got 4 choices there about, on a synoptic chart, what is the symbol for a front that's getting weaker? I'll give you just a few more seconds to think that one through. You'll have seen it on the charts, and it's something that at weather school does confuse quite a few pilots. So let's see how you've done. There we are. Let's just have a look down those results. That's not bad, actually. So 4% of you said that a solid line with semicircles or triangles. 38% said it was a line with plus symbols along it with triangles or semicircles. 26% of you said it was a solid line with alternating semicircles and triangles, and 32% of you said it was a solid line with nothing marked on it. Well, the answer, and I suspect quite a few of you have been to weather school who got it right, because I make such a big thing of this, is B. It's a line with plus symbols marked along it, and you'll have semicircles or triangles along that as well. Now, that can be quite confusing to pilots because, of course, we automatically think that if we see a plus symbol along the front, that would mean, wouldn't it, that the front is actually getting stronger? That's what you would think. But remember, this is meteorology. This is the dark art. We don't make things easy for you. So if you see a plus symbol along the front, that means that front is getting weaker. So just bear that in mind. However, what I should say, put a huge caveat across this, which is that doesn't mean that we haven't got low cloud and rain and poor visibility associated with that front. We may have still. It's just that the forecaster has observed that front has got significantly weaker during the preceding 3 hours. Now, the other symbol you might see along the front is a little dot or a minus symbol, and that means, you guessed it, the front is getting stronger. So really for pilots, it's those dots or minus symbols along the front that are more important because it indicates that the front is getting stronger. The one at the end there, which was the solid black line, that's a trough. And as pilots, we need to be aware of troughs. We don't want to be flying in those because those have heavy showers, thunderstorms, and just about the kitchen sink involved with troughs. So you don't want to be going anywhere near those. So well done, everybody. Hopefully that got you thinking. So we're off on a day trip to Shobden, and Matt's covered the physical flying preparation and planning. But what about the weather planning side of things? Well, the weather planning can start as early as 7 days ahead, and you can do that by having a quick look at the general forecast. Now, many of you know that I'm not a fan of weather apps, particularly as we're getting close to the time that we're going to fly. But if you're kind of 7 days ahead, then there's no harm in having a look at those apps. Although, as many of you will already know, you can look at them 1 hour and the next hour they'll be saying something completely different. So do be aware of that. Alternatively, you can watch my mate Ben Rich there on the TV giving the country fire forecast on Sunday. That gives us an outlook for the week ahead, and it just gives you those general overviews. And of course, there's also the Met Office website. You can get more information from there as well for those longer term outlooks. What you've got to remember, though, and this is really important, is that the forecast is an evolving story. So it's going to be something that changes. And as forecasters, we do expect those changes to occur. But as pilots, we can have a fair amount of trust in a forecast, so long as we are constantly monitoring and watching for any changes. Now, generally speaking, the less changes that you see, the more confidence you can have in the forecast, as a rough rule of thumb. And really that does hold fairly true. So over the next few days, it's a good idea just to look at the weather and make a generalized decision about whether we're going to continue the flight, about whether we're going to cancel it, or whether we're going to make it a maybe. Now, remember, I'm a forecaster, so kind of maybe is always featuring in there. That's the reason I came into this business in the first place, because it's the only job you can do 7 days a week, get it wrong every one of those 7 days, and they're still going to pay you at the end of it. Those are the decisions you can make. You can either continue, we can cancel, or we can make it a maybe. So at this stage, the general synoptic situation and the likely general weather conditions are going to be our main weather sources. And there are loads of Met information sources available out there. I mean, you think back 10 years when we had such limited availability of data, and now that amount of data can sometimes become a little bit overwhelming, can't it? But you've heard me say this before, no doubt. Really, if you're looking at more than 3 sources of weather information at more than 3 websites, you're probably looking for the weather that you want to see. So always bear that in mind. Good sources of information are the Met Office app, the Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, which is free to sign up to. If you've not already, then get signed up to that. It provides lots and lots of aviation weather information. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen on the Met Office Aviation Weather Service, there's lots of additional little bits and pieces in there, decodes, etc., and things just to get you in the mood for weather. Lots of information for GA pilots. And as we monitor the weather, if it's looking good for Saturday, perhaps in the West Country and parts of Wales, we know that Shobden is down in Herefordshire, then actually we can continue to plan ahead. If it looks awful, having looked at the weather in that part of the country, then it's probably best to cancel early on. But as I say, it's that monitoring of conditions that really is the key to making that decision as to whether we go ahead, as to whether we cancel, or whether it's a maybe. Now, at Weather School, I make the point of using synoptic charts, and really I think this is something that can be neglected by pilots, because we look at the charts, and very often, if it's a confusing chart, I mean, I've seen it happen on more than one occasion. You look at it and you go, "Ah, right, yeah," and you throw it to one side, get back to your app to tell you what the weather's going to be. But if you can persevere with the synoptic charts, then these really do give you a heads up as to what the weather is going to be doing. And it's far more satisfying to know that you've actually done the forecast yourself. So you can look at these up to 5 days even before the time of your flight to see how things are likely to be turning out. So what might you look at on these charts? And we'll look at some in just a couple of moments. Well, first of all, think about the air masses. Now, I know that the air masses in the textbooks, boy, is that a deathly boring topic. But really, air masses, if you can crack them and understand what information air masses are trying to convey, then you can make a prediction as to what cloud bases are likely to be, what the tops are likely to be, what's visibility going to be like, what's the weather going to be like. It really is air masses that do this. But one of the points that I make at Weather School really strongly is that you shouldn't beat yourself up if you can't identify an air mass on any particular day. We can be between air masses. And remember that the air is constantly mixing. So as forecasters, we're probably only identifying air masses properly on perhaps 7 out of 10 days. And that's with me having sort of 30 years plus experience. There will still be those occasions, those 3 out of 10 occasions, when I can't correctly identify an air mass, or the air is so mixed up that it's not possible to do so. But on those occasions when we can make predictions of cloud bases, visibility, cloud levels as well. So lots of information to come from air masses. Now, that maybe decision, that outcome is an important one, because what having a maybe in our mind does, it allows us to try and avoid confirmation bias. So we're back to that idea of looking at more than 3 websites and you're looking for the weather that you want to see. It really is a human factors trap. So having that maybe in the back of our mind says that we're already preconditioned in our thinking to the fact that our intended flying trip may have to be cancelled, or it may have to be modified. I mean, that's part of flying, isn't it? It never really goes according to plan. There's always those changes to be made. And perhaps then we're less likely to try and convince ourselves on the day that it'll be okay, when really it isn't. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things that we as pilots can do, is look out the window and think, I'll go flying on that because it's bound to be okay and I can always turn around and come back. That is not the proper way to be flying. Really, we need to be confident that we can make that flight if we've decided to. So that maybe decision perhaps gives us time to replan some alternatives. It could be perhaps that we head off south to Leon Solent if the weather is better there than it is across the Southwest Midlands, Wales and Southwest England. So again, the maybe decision can be taken by looking at the synoptic charts ourselves, and that builds our confidence that the weather picture probably isn't going to be changing that much when we actually get to go flying. So in terms of the synoptic chart, and we'll show you that now, it's quite a complicated chart with elements such as isobars we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at significant frontal movements. We're going to be looking at troughs. We're going to be looking at other phenomena as well. And most importantly, as I've already said, I want to show you continuation between charts. So this idea that looking at the forecast continuously builds our confidence that we can expect the weather at the weekend to be what we expect it to be. So let me just show you these charts. Now, this is the 60-hour forecast chart for Saturday morning. So this is as we would have seen it on Thursday evening. Now, I'm jumping forward to Thursday evening, and the reason for that, actually Thursday morning, this is as we would have seen it on Thursday morning. And the reason I'm jumping forward is that we just don't have time to go through all the charts. Trust me, I could go on about these for the next 6 hours, okay? But really, you don't want to be doing that. So what I'm doing here is just taking you forward to a chart that we would see on Thursday morning. This is the forecast chart valid for midday on Saturday. So what we're looking at here is a front that's across the southern parts of the Midlands, running into parts of South Wales and Southwest England. You notice we've got low pressure up towards the north of Scotland, and actually we've got, excuse me, in there, a polar maritime airflow coming from the west to the northwest. Now, polar maritime airflow means showers. We've got a ridge of high pressure, that little nose that you can see in the isobars there, across Ireland, across northern England, and that's bringing some dry conditions there with some sunny spells. Now, down to the south, we've got our front. Now, pilots can get hung up on exactly what each front means, but, and you'll know this from the previous webinar that we did in December, just think of fronts as areas of cloud and rain. Yes, it's nice to know what the actual structure of the front is, but don't get yourselves overly confused. Think of fronts as areas of cloud and rain. Excuse me. So that's all you've got to think of them as. So with this forecast on a 60-hour forecast chart for Saturday, it shows us that we've got probably cloud and rain affecting the southern Midlands and southern parts of England. So Bryce to Shobden, perhaps not looking that good. Let's have a look at the chart for the next day, and excuse my cough because I'm going to do it again. There's the 36-hour forecast. And what this one is showing is a very similar scenario. So we have a front across the southern Midlands, across South Wales, and running into northern parts of southern England. It's not changed that much. You'll notice that it's gone from a warm front to a cold front. But again, you know, let's not worry too much about that. It's still an area of cloud and rain. Conditions to the north across Scotland are still looking quite showery. But across the southern Midlands, South Wales, as I say, into the northern parts of southern England, that front is still there. So there's good consistency there between the forecasts. So that is suggesting that actually we can have confidence in the forecast that it's going to be pretty well, rubbish through the course of the day on Saturday. It's not looking particularly great for Bryce to Shobden. In the back of my mind, I'm starting to think, well, let's head south. That may be a better option. So let's have a look at the day itself. So this is what we would do on the day. Let's pretend that it's now Saturday, and you look at the weather to refine your decision into whether we decide to head off to Shobden or not. Now, the best source of information to make this decision is the Met Office. And they do obviously forms 214 and 215, and also to take a look at the local METARs and TAFs. But because you've done this planning beforehand, you have in the back of your mind the idea that the weather probably doesn't look particularly excellent for our trip, but that's already there. So you kind of know what to expect when you're looking at a forecast for the actual day itself. So before we go into forms 214, 215, I've got another question for you. Have a look at this. On form 215, what does 15 kilometers light R, oh, I shouldn't have said that, should I? 15 kilometers and then the dash and RA mean on form 215? So what does 15 km and the dash RA mean on form 215? Is it 15 kilometer visibility with light rain? Is it 15 kilometer visibility with light rain showers? Is it 15 nautical miles visibility with heavy rain showers? Or is it 15 nautical mile visibility with a low probability of fog? Which one of those do you think it is on form 215? If you saw that, what does 15 kilometers and the little dash RA mean on form 215? Let's just give you another few seconds and let's see what you think that is. Yeah, well done. So 80% of you thought it was 15 kilometers visibility with light rain. Did I help you out there? No, of course I didn't. There were 17% of you thought it was 15 kilometers visibility with light rain showers. 2% thought 15 nautical miles visibility with heavy rain showers. And none of you thought it meant 15 nautical miles visibility with low probability of fog, which I'm really pleased about. A few of you put light rain showers in there, and that's a common trap that we can fall into, again, as pilots. And the reason is there's a strict difference for us forecasters when we're forecasting rain or showers. And to forecasters, we think of showers as precipitation that falls from cumuloniform clouds. So that can be cumulus or cumulonimbus. That's what we define a shower as. Now, of course, colloquially, we think, don't we, as showers as being short-lived bursts of rain. But as forecasters, the phrase showers has absolutely no reference to the time span at all. It just means that precipitation is falling from cumulus or cumulonimbus clouds. So be really careful when you're looking at forecasts that you don't fall into the trap of seeing perhaps RASH, which would be rain showers, and thinking that they will only be short-lived periods of rain. It's really important that you don't fall into that trap. In that example, we spoke about it being rain. So that means that usually rain is coming from frontal cloud. That's what it usually refers to in the 215. So really important not to get into that showers and rain trap. Okay, so now let's have a look at form 215 for the day and see what was on there. So this was form 215, valid for last Saturday. And immediately it kind of confirms, I suppose, our worst fears, doesn't it, about making that flight? It's not looking the best of options. But let's just quickly run through 215 and just take you through what's on there. It's area C that we're going to be focused on. Okay, so it's area C that we're going to be focused on. And you can see there we've got a warm front. That front that we saw on the forecast charts, and again, remember, it swapped, didn't it, from Thursday to Friday, from a warm to a cold front, but it was still in the same place. So you see what I mean about, for us as GA pilots, I really don't care whether it's a warm front or whether it's a cold front. It means cloud and rain, and it probably means that we're not going to be flying. And you can see there that on form 215, they've got it marked on as a warm front. Now, really importantly, look at the top of that chart. It says forecast weather below 10,000 feet, and this is valid between the 18th at 0800 hours and the 18th at 1700 hours Zulu on the 22nd of June. No, it's not, sorry, June 2022. Okay, so the 18th of June 2022. But look next to it. Can you see there it says front stroke zones valid at 1200 Zulu. So that means that the fronts and the zones are only valid for the 18th of June at 1200 GMT. That's the time of validity of the chart we're looking at. Not 0800, not 1700, that midpoint of midday on the 18th. That's when that's valid for. And you can see there those arrows that go through the front, pointing in a north-northwesterly direction, telling us that the front is moving at 5 knots. So it's a really slow moving front. So it's going to be moving at what, 5 nautical miles an hour, really virtually nothing at all. And then first of all, what I do is I look at the area that I'm interested in. So we're looking at area C. And what I do first is look at the second box in. So under surface vis and WX, bring your eyes down to area C and the box next to that. That's surface visibility and weather. And what I do is I go from the bottom upwards, because the bottom part of the forecast is actually the worst bit. So it says there, occasional hill fog. Then working our way upwards, we've got isolated turbulence in the far west of the region. That's what the little triangle symbol means. And the decode for that is actually below the chart itself. So you can see there where it says altitudes in hundreds of feet above mean sea level, below there is a little decode for you. And that little triangle means isolated turbulence in the far west. Then we've got isolated 3,000 meters in mist over the sea coasts in the southwest. And again, some of these abbreviations can be a little bit difficult at times, a bit obscure, but if you go to the Met Office GA Aviation website and scroll right the way down to the bottom of the page, you'll see there's a list of abbreviations there. Well worthwhile just keeping that to hand, download it onto your computer and just have it to hand for when you forget what these mean. And then we've got isolated 4,000 meters in heavy rain near the front. Now, it might be me, call me old-fashioned, but this isn't looking that good, is it? And then we've got isolated, but frequently close to the front, 7 kilometers in showers of rain or rain. Now, the showers of rain, remember, just means that precipitation is coming from cumulus or cumulonimbus cloud. The rain means it's coming from frontal cloud. So we've got a bit of both. It makes no reference to the time taken for that precipitation to fall. The bit that does tell us is the isolated. So we're only expecting bits of showers or rain, but they will be more frequent close to the front. And then we've got isolated 8 kilometers in thunderstorms and rain, mainly along the front west of 2 degrees east. Otherwise, it's 25 kilometers and nil at times. But I don't know about you, that's not enticing me particularly. And then on the next box, we've got cloud dealt with there. And again, we go from the lower cloud bases upwards. A couple of points just to make on here is that take a look at the bottom sentence on there where it says ISOL areas, sea coasts in the southwest. So that's isolated in areas of the sea coast in the southwest, scattered to broken, and that's stratus 500 to 1,000 foot bases with tops of 1,500 feet. Now, pilots often get confused by this, but always we get firstly the forecast of the cloud base, then the solidus, which gives the dash, and then we get the top. So it's base and top, 500 to 1,000 foot base, 1,500 foot top. And again, just working our way upwards through that, scattered broken Q or strat Q with moderate turbulence, with a base of between 1,500 and 3,500 feet and a top of 7,000 to 9,000 feet. That's quite a depth of cumulus there. And then isolated embedded Q-NIMS with a base of 9,000 feet. That's high, isn't it, for cumulonimbus clouds? A base of 9,000 feet, and the tops go beyond our 10,000 foot ceiling that this chart is for. And most of those will be along the front west of 2 degrees east. And then widespread across that area, broken or overcast altocumulus, and that's going to have moderate icing within it. And again, use the little decode below the chart to tell us that, and that will have moderate turbulence as well, 9,000 foot base and the top above our 10,000 foot ceiling. And our freezing levels, no need to worry, 9,000 feet and above that level. So really, I mean, what can we read from that 215? Yeah, it's telling us what we need to know, isn't it? Okay, so let's just quickly complete that look at 215 by looking at 214. And there is the 214 for the day. Now, hopefully many of you are familiar with 214 and 215. How much notice you take of it is a different matter, but I would urge you always, before you go flying, even if you're doing a local flight at the airfield, make sure you download 214 or 215, print it out, put it in your flight bag, save it onto your iPad, save it onto your iPhone, because that proves that you've looked at the weather before you've gone flying. Really important that you do that. So this is form 214, and I've got another poll for you. I've got another question because I've been rabbiting on for quite some time now. So on this chart, what is the forecast 2,000 foot wind specifically for Shobden? So on this chart, what's the forecast 2,000 foot wind specifically for Shobden? Is it 360 degrees at 15 knots, 250 degrees at 20 knots? Is it that there is no forecast specifically for Shobden, or is it 210 degrees at 25 knots? So there are your choices. So on this chart, what's the forecast 2,000 foot wind specifically for Shobden? 360 at 15 knots, 250 at 20 knots. There is no forecast specifically for Shobden, or 210 at 25 knots. Let's see how you get on with this one. Hey, you're learning fast. I'm very impressed. Well done, you. 19% say 360 degrees, 15 knots. None of you said 250 at 20 knots. 81% of you said there's no forecast specifically for Shobden, and none of you said 210 degrees at 25 knots. So 81% of you got that correct. And absolutely, there is no forecast specifically for Shobden. So it was a bit of a trick question, really. It's because the boxes that we see on form 214 relate specifically to the line of latitude and longitude that's marked at the top of those boxes. So, for example, the nearest one to Shobden is marked to 52.30 north, 0230 west. And I think that's where those of you who got that incorrect got your wind from, as 360 degrees, 15 knots. But it's important just to remember that you need to look at the boxes around and about to make an adjustment as to what that wind was likely to be, because there is no forecast on there specifically for Shobden. Also, really important to note that the heights marked on form 214 relate to the heights above sea level, not above ground level. So always remember that. So if you're flying from, I mean, I don't know what the altitude is at Shobden, but here at Halfpenny Green, we're 300 feet. So actually our 2,000 foot wind marked on form 214 is actually the wind at 1,700 feet, and the wind at 1,000 feet is the wind at 700 feet. So always remember that as well. And remember too, that this forecast is valid for the time stated. So at the top of that form, it says forecast for 12 UTC on the 18th of June, valid between 0900 and 1500 hours. But the actual forecast itself is for midday. So if you have a front going through, the wind is likely to change if you're going to be flying at 1500 hours as opposed to 0900 hours. Always bear that in mind as well. So that's the forecast weather and wind. Final things to look at are TAFs and METARs. And there is one other forecast as well that we can look at before we look at the TAFs and METARs. How many of you are using these, the GAMETs or the GA METs? I wonder. This is a forecast that replaced the AirMet, which was so useful. I'm so sorry to see that AirMets are no longer available. They've been replaced by the GAMET forecast. go and have a look at these, okay? They cover the regions that you see there across the UK, 4 regions. I have to say where the regions blend aren't exactly where I would have chosen. I would like to have seen a bigger overlap, but they're there. That's what we've got. Have a look at this forecast. It's in relatively plain language, and it gives you a forecast for the coming short-term period. So the forecast in the morning on the Saturday morning would have been the forecast for the day. It gives you an outlook for the evening, and it gives you a flying forecast for the next day as well, which include things like cloud bases, visibility, winds, etc. Don't be put off by the gamut forecast when you look at it at first. It isn't that readable. It's all in capital letters. Just have a bit of patience, sit there and read it. It is a really useful forecast. And I think that as pilots, we should be making much more of that. So go and have a look. You get it through the Met Office Aviation website. Have a look at gamuts and then choose the forecast for your area. Okay, so very briefly, let's look at the TAFs and METARs for Brize Norton and for Gloucester as well. And also we've got the METARs down the bottom there. So just glancing through these very quickly and picking out some salient points from these. And for Brize Norton, immediately what I'm looking at, just scanning down there, is that we've got a prob 30 of 5,000 meters in rain with a prob 40 of scattered cloud at 1,200 feet with broken at 2,000 feet throughout the forecast. Not only that, it's telling me that during the afternoon between 1,200 and 1,500 hours, we may go 10K or more, and the cloud base may lift. But as well as that, we've got a probability of 4,000 meters in heavy rain later on in the day. So Brize isn't that bad, but I don't like the look of that low cloud. And I don't like the idea that there's a fair old chance that temporarily we're going to see 5,000 meters in moderate rain. Gloucester, a little bit further north here, and you can see there that those prob 40s between 7 in the morning and 1,500 in the afternoon of 6,000 meters in rain and broken at 800 feet, certainly not liking that. And a prob 30 early morning, 300 meters in fog, but that's probably going to clear. Although then a prob 30 that between 8 in the morning and midday, we're going to be at broken at 400 feet. So Gloucester being close to the front certainly has the worst weather generally, but Brize is the one that's given us that risk of moderate rain on and off through the course of the day. And just interesting, those METARs that I've shown you down the bottom there, they're the METARs that would have been at flight time. And actually, you see there, the 0900Z METAR for Brize is not bad. Broken 1,700 feet, broken 2,000 feet, and we've got 10K visibility. It does say that, that temporarily the cloud will lower, but overall, that's not bad. You could be tempted into that, couldn't you? And looking at the forecast for Gloucester as well, easy to be tempted into that one too. Sorry, looking at the METAR for Gloucester, easy to be tempted into that one too, with 10K visibility and broken at 2,700 feet. But that would have been, I think, a temptation too far, because this is what actually happened on the day. So remember those forecast charts. This is the analysis chart for midday. It's pretty darn close, if not almost spot on, what was forecast to happen. Front line through southwest England. It's a little bit further south across southwest England and just clipping into southern Wales and southern England. The front was there. Conditions were not particularly very pleasant through the day, and that was confirmed when you look at the rainfall radar, which Matt is going to be just telling you about now. So hopefully that was useful for you. Happy to answer questions as we go along, but Matt's going to show you the rainfall radar from that day and talk us through a little bit about flying on that day. Matt.
Yep. So, and we actually picked this day last week. We didn't know what the weather was going to be like. We just said we'll do the weather a week before. And I was living this in real time because I'm on our parish council in the village, and we had our village fete on the Saturday, and we were trying to make decisions about the fete and what was going inside and what was going out and all this. So we're very much living this in real time. Those METARs and TAFs are what I would call, in instructor examiner terms, Simon would probably cringe at this, a messy day. Yeah, there's lots of prob 30s, there's lots of prob 40s. It's one of those do we, don't we days. And, you know, we would perhaps be looking at, you know, what we were going to do in our flight and that, going and landing away, potentially getting delayed, things waiting, going to Cambridge this week, I had to wait much longer than expected for fuel in the Duchess. Then we had to wait to get our approaches in, and, things slip and that. So landing away might not be the thing. I don't think I would even be looking to go and do a land away potentially with that kind of forecast. If somebody, one of my pilots, needed 2 or 3 circuits back at base for a currency trip, is that the kind of trip I'd say, well, yeah, let's meet up and have a look at it and do? Yep, quite possibly. I mean, some of you may want to comment in the chat box about, what you would think. Some of you may be IR pilots with far more capable aircraft. You might be less worried. Some of you maybe think, well, I've got another day. I could try it on Sunday. Who knows there as well. But look at that rainfall radar. That really does tell you what happened. Obviously, Bryce down there to the south of Birmingham is in that kind of sucker's gap, if I can call it that. Certainly going out towards Shobden, going out towards Gloucester. There's the heavy band of rain coming in as well. And what happened on the day with us at Bryce, like I say, near Bryce, my village fete, we had quite heavy showers coming through, but we didn't have the prolonged rain. I was chatting to a friend who was actually trying to do something at Gloucester Airport, and they had pretty horrible weather pretty much continuously through the day. So it was definitely borne out there as well. But let us know in the chat box, see what you would do or what you think of it. Next slide, please. So just a reminder then, lots of aviation sources. You'll get the links to all of this in the post-meeting emails and that as well. Obviously, the Met Office is a regulated source, so that's what we've been talking about tonight. There is loads and loads of other sources of information. Simon's already touched on apps. On my phone here, I've got loads of apps which are great for when you're out and about away from Wi-Fi. You can get information, you can get METARS, TAF, the planning, Skydemon can give you all sorts of colourful graphical things. Other apps can there as well. The only thing we'd like to remind you of is be very clear at what you're looking at, and be very clear at where that information is coming from. Is it live information, or is it a model, or is it predicted information? Be very clear about it, and be very clear as well about the dates and times on that as well. I'd once had a glitch on one of my apps as well, and it wasn't pulling through the updated information. I was getting very confused by it, and it was only by when I noticed the date time group as well, and yeah, my data is not pulling this down. It's not updating and that as well. So exploit everything out there. I'd certainly encourage people to do that, but be very clear about what sources you're using, where it's coming from, and the currency of it as well. There's also some apps out there that blend, certainly on the rainfall radar, they will blend actual rainfall radar pictures with predicted rainfall pictures as well, almost in a seamless timeline. So be quite careful of that. Are you looking at actual stuff that's happening, or is it a prediction? And as we all know, a prediction can be right, can be wrong, can be approximately right, and so on as well there as well. Great. That's me. We've got loads of really exciting questions coming in, so I think I'll wrap there. And there's some really interesting questions to pick over there, Chris, I think.
I think there is, you're right. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Simon. And yeah, welcome to the newbies. We've got people as far away as Italy to this evening, so thank you very much for chiming in on that and getting involved. Thanks ever so much for all the chat that's been going on. It's really good. There's been a couple of comments regarding Facebook and Instagram and the reasons why we've elected to offer the price to people that follow us and that. And the reason is simple. We can reach you guys much easier by pushing information to you through those sources. And we do that. We're pretty active on Facebook and Instagram, and therefore, that helps me to put the safety message out there in a more consistent manner rather than a workshop every 6 weeks or so. So it's as simple as that, really. I do have some good news for one person. I've been handed a note by my lovely assistant, and it says that Trevor Christian is the winner this evening. So Trevor, well done. Thanks very much. We will be in contact with you after this with your voucher for Simon's Weather School. Right then, as Matt says, let's get on to the Q&A. We've got a couple of questions that were sent in beforehand, so I'll kick off with those if I may. So question 1 is from Charlie, who's a student pilot. Hi, Charlie. I hope you're on this evening as well. He said, please may I ask about the main differences between the pressure gradient wind, this is definitely one for Simon, and the geostrophic wind? I get a sense he might have a test coming up. The definitions he's read in exam prep material have been a little vague.
Okay, so easy way for this one, Charlie, is to think of the gradient wind is the wind that we experience when we're at the surface, and the geostrophic wind is the wind that, and this is where it gets a little bit technical, is when the pressure gradient force and the Coriolis force balance out. But we can make that a lot more simpler, because essentially geostrophic wind for us as GA pilots generally means it's the wind at about 3,000 feet, and it's the wind that flows directly along the isobars. So when you've removed friction, which is at the surface, and that's what slows down the wind speed and causes the wind to appear to back to the isobars, when you remove friction from the equation, the wind flows directly along the isobars. That's geostrophic wind. How's that?
It's almost like you got a doctorate in weather. Right then. So our next question, thank you very much, Simon.
I know what I'm talking about. That's the main thing.
That one wasn't planted, by the way. Right, our next question is from Roger. Roger's on this evening. I've seen him chiming in as well. Hi, Roger. He says, I got another one for Simon, I think. Please, can you explain what the broken red lines on the weather charts mean? The numbers next to them are often something like 5, 6, 4 or similar 3-digit numbers.
Okay, hi Roger. Yeah, the lines that you see there, those dotted lines, are now again, don't panic about this, because we like using all these technical phrases in forecasting. Those are what we call thickness lines. So that is, we take a measure of 2 levels in the atmosphere, and meteorologists use levels in the atmosphere. When we're measuring levels in the atmosphere, we use fixed pressure surfaces. So what we do is we take the thickness, how thick in decameters, which is tens of a meter, the atmosphere is between 1,000 millibars or 1,000 hectopascals. I'll get told off for saying millibars now, but 1,000 millibars, you know what I mean, and 500 millibars. And we take that thickness level, so how deep the atmosphere is between those 2 points. And what it tells us is that the deeper the atmosphere is, so the higher those numbers, that 546 and 564, the higher those numbers, the warmer that column of the atmosphere is. Now, for us as pilots, doesn't really mean a great deal. However, 564 in the summer generally points to a heat wave. 528 in the winter is what we call the snow line. So if you have a thickness less than 528 decameters, that 528 line, basically, if you've got a thickness of less than that, that means there is, and get this, a greater than 50% chance of precipitation reaching the ground as snow. So, you know, when you see those probability forecasts of snow, essentially 1,500 millibar thicknesses is one of the methods that we use to predict the probability of snow. There you go. You can amaze your friends in the pub with that one afterwards. You can forecast snow yourself.
Great, thank you. Right, here's a hopefully relatively straightforward one from Chris. It says, does Gamut give us anything that the TAFs and METARs or Sky Demon weather tab don't? So what does Gamut give us?
Yeah, I think, and again, I don't know if Matt uses these and if he wants to jump in this, but for me, what the Gamut does is it gives an outlet for the forecaster to write something in semi-plain language. So in the TAF and on Form 215, it's very prescriptive. So forecasters have to stay within certain boundaries and use certain strict definitions. Whereas in the gamuts, it allows the forecaster to write more a little bit what he or she really thinks of the chances of something happening. So just allows that broader area view, and allows the forecaster just to wrap it on a little bit more about what they think the weather is likely to do. And one of the beauty of just reading through the gamuts and getting used to them is a little bit like using the synoptic chart. It gives us that broader view. So it stops us honing in on one area, let's say just Bryce to Shobden, and becoming focused on that area. It gives us the broader view of the weather, because obviously weather's happening over a broad area. And that's really, I think, what gamuts bring to the party. They should be used with METARs and TAFs. And just one other thing as well, because the gamut has an outlook on it, actually, you can use it the day before, whereas the taps generally end at a shorter time period than the gametes on.
And I'd echo that as well. So one of the things that we're trying to push with examining and that as well is having, exactly as Simon says, that broad brush overview and awareness of what the weather's doing. I often do tests with students that can give me an absolute textbook explanation of what the TAFs and METARs mean, and in detail. Absolutely brilliant. But I often say to them, okay, but what's the excuse me, the overall situation today? And often they don't really know, haven't appreciated that. So I think it's so important to be able to just say, well, we've got a warm front coming down from the northwest, or we've got a cold front that's going to hit us 2 o'clock this afternoon. Having that kind of big picture appreciation of what's happening and what's likely to affect us is really important to frame our thinking, rather than just getting into the very, very specifics of TAFs. And I think.
And also, just a point that Tiago's just made. Hello, Tiago, a weather school attendee. He's just made the point here that gametes also give you wind conditions for more specific locations, and they do. So you get even more wind information by looking at the gametes.
Good stuff. I've got a question here from Alistair. It says the best source for forecast charts, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would always use the Met Office Aviation Briefing Service, the link that we put in the chat box earlier. It's a free, you need to sign up for it, but it is a free service, and you get the 215s, the 214s, all the charts that you've seen this evening are all on the gametes there as well. So that is kind of my starting point for all of this info. Right, we've got another one from Tony. This was back in the chat box earlier. So Simon, if you remember that 215, we had the Area C, and it was that band across the country, but it wasn't just on the landmass, it was actually across the sea as well. So Tony's question was, with far west, remember one of the points was, I can't remember the details, but it's something in the far west of Area C. Would far west mean that it was the far west of the land, or far west of the whole area?
Yeah, good point. Tony, that means it's the far west of the whole area. So the far west of the extremes of that chart, and that includes over the sea. So when they're forecasting on forms 215, they're looking at that complete box that we look at. So when they're talking far west, it would refer to including oversea areas. Absolutely.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Just jumping in there, Chris, as well, you know, on the charts you just said. And this is not self-promotion, okay? I haven't worked out why on the Met Office website the charts don't update as quickly as they do on our website at weatherweb.net. So all these charts are free, by the way, weatherweb.net. If you go to forecast charts and go down to Met Office fronts, you'll see that our charts, the analysis charts, seem to update more frequently than the Met Office analysis charts do. So again, there are other websites that have got those charts on the analysis and forecast charts when they arrive more quickly there as well. So just something to be aware of with that on the Met Office site. But really importantly, and I keep making this point, 214, 215 really is what you should look at, and those are from the Met Office website. But it is just something that I've noticed there seems to be a delay with the charts getting through to the Met Office website at times. So again, you know, for pilots, don't think that you're on your own with that, looking at older charts. You're not. It's just that sometimes there can be a delay. Although 214, 215, the gametes, all of that sort of stuff is always there, bang on time. It's just the synoptic charts that can be delayed at the Met Office website.
Great, thank you. Okay, we are rapidly running out of time, so I'll make this the last question, if I may. And this is I think this is a good one actually from John. Essentially, can you explain CAV-OK? His second part of that is, why is CAV-OK not always okay? So discuss. Good one to finish on.
Truth, right? Okay, so the pressure's on for the definition of CAV-OK. I'm going to say, is it above 5 kilometers with cloud, with a cloud base above? I'm struggling at 5,000 feet. Am I right with that? Somebody want to Google that and just have a look what the definition is? So it is that's the reason why, is because you're looking at a minimum visibility and you're looking at a minimum cloud base as well. And you've got to have really essentially, I mean, it doesn't look at wind speed, but essentially what it's looking at is the most important things for pilots, which is going to be, of course, visibility and cloud base, which is why they use CAV-OK. Somebody's going to tell me, yeah, no cloud below 5,000 feet. Oh, and it is VIS 10 kilometers or more. So there you go. You know, I learned something as well. So yeah, VIS 10K more, and no cloud below 5,000 feet. So, of course, the reason it's not CAV OK all the time is because you can have those conditions below those levels. And Matt's just said as well, there can't be any queue, NIM, or towering queue.
Yeah, and the thing to catch people out, 10 kilometers viz, you think, oh, that's always great. Actually, in the summer, into sun, with hay, sort of that kind of hazy goldfish bowl, and that sometimes 10K isn't always that brilliant for flying if in terms of getting a visual horizon and things like that as well. So you do have to think about where you're going as well. Chris, if we have got, if we can stretch a couple of minutes
go
more,
on then.
It would be really good if Simon could just comment on the percentage probabilities, the Prob 40 and the Prob 30, because this is something that comes up all the time in discussions as well, with students and pilots out there. I think that would just be a really good one to finish on. Okay, go for it.
Okay. This is that old chestnut, the Prob 30, Prob 40. There seems to have become a habit out there in the flying community that Prob 30 means it probably won't happen, Prob 40 means it probably will. It's complete and utter rubbish, absolute nonsense. Don't believe that. That seems to have got into the vernacular somewhere along the way. Forecasters only have two options when dealing with probabilities, and it is Prob 30, Prob 40. Those are the two choices that forecasters have. So all they can do really is make a statement using those, that there is a greater chance of an event occurring with a Prob 30, with a Prob 40 than with a Prob 30. So that's all that they are saying. And I always urge pilots as well to be aware that, the TAF is for a specific airfield. So the TAF, the probability is valid for that airfield. But then what do? We jump in our aircraft and we go flying around to try and find that prob. So the prob is actually way more than it's shown in the TAF, because we're actually going to go out very often and look for that condition. So it's something really that we need to remember, is that the TAF is valid just for that airfield, but never fall into that Prob 30, Prob 40 trap of Prob 30 means it probably won't happen, Prob 40 means it probably will. That's not the case. Forecasters only have those two options available to them, Prob 30 or Prob 40, to give the idea of the risk of an event occurring. But it definitely doesn't mean that it won't happen or that it will.
Lovely.
Have I put that one to bed?
I think you've quite comprehensively put that one to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. and just on Matt's comment about visibility, which was of course totally valid, the idea that slant visibility is different to the visibility that we measure at the airfields. At the airfields, we're looking horizontally. So we're just looking at that visibility. Always remember that. The point Matt makes about slant visibility, particularly on a fine day, such as today when we've got heat, or when we've got inversions on summer's mornings, on summer's evenings, visibility can often be less than half of that than you would see reported at the ground.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Right. A couple of selfless plugs before we finish off this evening. So as you know, Simon runs Weather School, and he's got some courses coming up, as you can see advertised on the screen there. Please check out his website, www.weatherschool.co.uk. There's lots of other resources on there, lots of different stuff you can get involved in. There's obviously quite a lot of interest around the weather, particularly in the UK, because it's so changeable. If you remember, the example we were using for Shobden was this Saturday. The day before was probably the nicest day of the year. So, you can't win, right? So I would thoroughly recommend checking out Simon's website and getting involved in his courses as well. And then finally, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I hope you've all taken something away from this. We certainly have. It's always great to have Simon on, and always great to have Matt on, so thank you both. So we're going to do another collaboration with Simon towards the end of the year, aren't we? I think it's about December time. Yeah. So if you enjoyed this evening, please do come along again, and we'll be doing more weather stuff then. But yeah, that's all from me really, other than to say a final thank you to Matt, and a final thank you to Simon.
Thanks all. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.